tyrant lay Tuan, born of lowly rank, yet dared defile the noble cause. In less than 5 fleeting years, his sins have spread 10,000 ways. He slays his kin, silences the just. He lifts up mongrel in-laws, lets jackals prowl the court unchecked. The firm of heart are cast to waste, while soft-tongued sycophants skulk in distant shadows. Honors once exhausted, yet still he rains them down. The people, ragged and hollow-eyed, yet still he strips them bare. He taxes to the ounce, to the coin, and spends gold like mud upon his boots. His tyranny rivals Qin Shi Huang. His pride surpasses that of Wei Huan. Ministers are treated as dogs and horses. The people are scorned like weeds beneath his heel. Yet still he builds vast palaces, wide gardens, drives the people to plant for his pleasure, repeats the ruinous steps that raise Mount Huoc Chuang in song times. He dares fill the sea to craft his halls, following the blind vanity of the Afang Palace of Qin. Walls rise, then fall, then rise anew. Labor never ends. The folk of Haiduang, Qinbach, weary, worn to bone. The royal blood grows rich in luxury, bloated in pride. Arrogance breeding insolence, insolence birthing unrest. The four corners of the realm tremble, borderlands swirl in chaos. The people groan, minds in anguish. The land, in grief, bleeds silently.
And that entire speech was about a murderer, a killer, a tyrant, all at the age of 17. Hi, before the video starts, I just want to say hi, my name's Lewington, if you're new here, hi. And also, second of all this research is done by me and only me, same with the editing, so I can only do so much as one person, but please, remember to do your own research, make your own conclusion, and of course, all the art and footage you use belong to their respective owner and creator. I just found them randomly on the internet. I'm sorry, I can't credit them all. Now this video is going about this 17-year-old who became one of like the top 3 most evil kings of Vietnam. And you know what? I'm glad to talk about him. There's not enough Vietnamese history out there, you know, because most people just think of yeah, there's more to Vietnamese history than that. But yeah, let us start with the Le dynasty themselves. They ruled Vietnam from like the year 1400 to the year 1800, with 400 years under their belt. But about like less than halfway through, this little shit was born. Now, I'm not saying he was the one who ended the dynasty, like, you know, he was, but he suddenly made it went bad for a while. You know, someone really had to pull it back together after he ruined everything. Plus, he remember, imagine being called the Demon King, despite only sitting on the throne for 5 years. I'm gonna say, you know, he's a pretty bad guy. Now, you're gonna hear me switch between the king, calling him king and emperor a lot, but there's actually a historical reason for that. You see, we only got our independence from China for, you know, a few hundred years. And, you know, we don't want to piss them off, alright? War is not good for anybody, despite what some may say. Americans. Now, so when the Chinese are around, you know, listening to us, visiting our court, recording for their history, we call ourselves king. But when they're not around, we call ourselves the emperor of Dainam, Vietnam, the deep south. Why? Because it sounds cooler, and we like to assert our independence that way. But we also don't like to go to war with them. Again. But yeah, let's begin. The year was 1498. Le Hiến Tông, the 6th emperor of Dai Viet back then, from him, he came out 6 sons. And our little maniac here, our little bundle of joy here, was second in line. But even before he was born, there was so much drama about him. Alright? His grandma did not like him at all. I mean, not at all. Mostly because his mom was from, you know, she's a concubine from a low-born family. She was pretty, definitely, but, you know, not up to grandma's standards. Now, this was an extra big deal because grandma despite being the Queen Dowager, still holds a lot of sway because her husband is Lê Thánh Tông. He was arguably one of the best emperor we ever had. So there's a lot of sway from her part. Alright? Now, of course, if grandma say that's a no-no, no one's gonna really question it. Because she did, to be fair, she did a lot of great things too. Not just her husband did back in those days. But the lady herself, the Empress Dowager, was constantly on and on about how horrible the mom is, how she come from less above, how she was filth that seduced her grandson. Or no, seduced her son. Grandson. No. It seduced her son. Yes. I'm getting a bit mixed up. Anyway, the lady was spitting so much fire, the poor lady became depressed, and as soon as our little boy was born, she died during childbirth. Was that the reason why? No, but I say, Grandma, that was pretty mean of you. Hey, anyway, when he was born, he was given to a different concubine, one that can't really seem to pop out any babies, but she was kept around as like a palace servant, more or less. That's just how concubines works back in imperial days. But Nguyễn Kính Phi is his adoptive mom, and well, she treated him like her own. Yeah, her own baby boy. Now, after a few years, eventually, the king, kicked the bucket. So his older brother, remember, our boy is second in line. So his older brother, Lê Thúc Tông. That's fun to say. Now, he came to the throne, but he only sat there on that throne for like 6 months before he died of sickness. Was it sickness? Was it poisoning? Was it something else? We don't know. But the throne rightfully is gonna go to our boy, Uy Muc. Now, Grandma did not like that. He was like, no common buff boy is gonna sit on the throne. Let me just call upon his cousin. Yes, his distant cousin from the far countryside. He will rule this entire country. He was called Prince Lacoy. We think there's actually like that is like the only mention we ever get of him out of historical records. We have no idea who he is, what he looks like, what he does. Maybe I don't know. Maybe when Uy Muc came to the throne, he made him white all the records about him. We don't know. Okay, he poof. Outside our mind, because his mom and some Uy Muc, adoptive mom, and some court nobilities who supported her, came together for a little plan to put our boy on the throne. Okay, now this is like the most hilarious part of this plan. They walked up to Grandma and told her, "Oh, the guy you wanted to put on the throne is here. He's like right outside the city. You should go and see him." You know, and then show him inside. And Grandma's like, "Ooh, it's my favorite distant boy. Let me go and see him." And as soon as she walked outside the city gates, they just closed the door behind her. Yeah, they just closed the door behind her, and then just coronate the little shit right there. They just put the crown on him right there while Grandma was standing right outside. It was so dumb. We don't even know the guy showed up or not. We don't even know the like fucking Lacoy ever showed up. But let's just say Grandma wasn't very happy about that. She wasn't mad. She was very disappointed. I'm not kidding. That's literally what I said. She was very insulted and unhappy that she stand there right outside the gates and hurl even more insults towards the wall, which we assume where everyone could hear and the message was delivered up to the king himself. Our new king, Uy Muc, now sits on the throne. Eventually, she was allowed back in, but you know, after it was all said and done, let's just say she was very grumpy and she did not hold back on the insults. Now, coming to the throne at 1505, calling himself Lord of the Capital Palace, which, you know, kind of expect him to. He's the emperor. He's supposed to rule the palace. Anyway, that's like calling yourself master of the house. Anyway, he does some, you know, traditional coronation stuff. big fees, grant mass pardon, yada yada yada. So far, it doesn't sound too bad, right? He's 17. Surely he got a whole long career in front of him as king and emperor. But the first thing he did was made Grandma drink poison. Literally 2 months after his coronation, Grandma was found dead in her room from poisoning. No one really know how it really went down. He could have just, poisoned her tea. He could have had a guy walked up to her, placed the vial down in front of her. He could have done it himself. We don't know. I doubt I doubt he would do it himself. He doesn't seem like the type. Anyway, after that, he had to cover it up. Kinslaying, killing an important grandma. You're not supposed to do that. And how does he cover up his own murder? The murdering that he's did? By hosting a very, very long funeral. He was said the palace is now closed. No further investigation until the week-long funeral is done. Yep, no one's allowed to investigate until I say so. But just to show that I did not kill Grandma, and I love Grandma, I'm just gonna give her a bunch of titles and honorifics. Yes, I'm gonna call her the greatest Grandma ever was, the greatest lady ever was, the honored queen of Dynam. After she's dead, of course. Now that she's dead, I'm gonna give her all the things in the world. Oh, little shit. But yeah, after that, well, he realized that, when I came to the throne, a fair amount of people still supported Grandma and that Lacroix guy. We don't know where he went. He just disappeared from records, so maybe he's dead, maybe he disappeared, maybe he never came. We don't know. But all he did next was a complete purge of the imperial court. I mean, clean house. If you were on my side, you were on her side. If you were fully on her side, off with your head. But if you tried to stay neutral, I'll send you to the countryside. Exile to a villa and to grow potatoes and no, not potatoes, grow rice. Watch people grow rice. They're nobility. They deserve that at least. Now, this entire purge was done with the help of two main noble, Nguyen Nhu Vi and Khương Trung, which, after the purge was done, he blamed them all for it. Yep, it was all their doing. It was their plan. It was all of their doing. Nope. So, off with their heads. Except Khương Trung. He gets to stay. Why? Because he was born in the same place as his mom. And for Vietnamese culture, that is basically saying that you're distant relatives. This is still very relevant in Vietnamese culture to this very day. It's kind of weird, but you just feel a kinship with someone who was born in the same place as you. The closer, the better. And this will be a very repeating pattern that we will see throughout this story. Now, throughout his reign, he didn't really do much. Mostly boozing, not even whoring. He was lusting after girls, maidens, pretty girls, and killing a lot of people. Sometimes all of that at the same time, in one night, after he was bored with those girls. Yeah, you were like the people who came in the next morning would have to clean up his room, and it would look like that whoreson scene from Witcher 3. Ugh. He deserved the worst. But not only that, he loved the idea of valor, of war. He was very much an armchair general. And in fact, he would love to see people regularly do it out inside his own palace. He would make the master of the horses and the master of the elephant just beat the shit out of each other for him to watch. Yeah, from every room, every corner. Those two specifically. Here, each one of you get a really long stick and beat each other to almost to death with it. He still needs them to, be in charge of his cavalry regiments and heavy cavalry regiment. But yeah, to be fair, whoever won gets paid a little more. Now, you could say that he was trying to create a friendly rivalry within the court, within the army. I say, if a fucking 17 years old is telling you to beat the shit out of another grown man for day and night for his amusement, while he goes and laugh and yes, beat his shit. you don't feel very honorable about that, now do you? I mean, the money is nice, sure, but you know. But not only that, he was also loved to just build his army. Like, he would go, whenever he goes outside, he would go to one of his vassals, like local castle court, break down their gates with an elephant that he's riding, and be like, bring out all the elephants. Yep, I want to see them. I want to pick which one's the best, and I'm gonna bring it back home. Yeah, they're all mine now. All your elephants, mine. Well, only the one I like. I'm gonna pick them. And then we get back to the castle, and he only picked like, I only like half of them. The other half look weird. Send the other half back. Yeah, all the way back. What a little shit he is. Yeah, and well, does he ever do anything? Does he ever practice war himself? Does he ever practice war battles? Nope. He just builds them. He just builds up his little regiment of horse and elephant riders and never does anything with them. So they're just really shiny. A really shiny, well-decked army with no real experience. Because he was busy whoring and boozing and murdering those poor girls. Now, where is he getting all these fine maidens when he's a king? Well, usually a king has to legally marry and register a concubine. He just has his KGB going out there, spying on the poor folk and just snatching up any pretty girl he likes. Yeah. And of course, you know, they disappear after a few nights of him getting bored of them. And then they go and snatch up a few more. The cycle just repeats. People live in constant fear. And, you know, to be fair, that's not all his KGB did. I called him the KGB, but there's just like a special spy network he has. But his spy network also did his fair share of, you know, spying on the nobility. Especially the one on his dad's side of the family. Yeah, they're the one with the stronger claim to the throne. And he wanted to make sure they never feel safe. They always feel watched. And they should know, if they fucked up, it's off with their head. If they ever take one bad look at the throne that he's sitting on, it's off with their head. So the day-to-day ruling was really left up to the mom side of the family. Nobility from his from relatives, really, from his adoptive mom side of the family, from his original mom side of the family, and his wife's side of the family. Yeah, he has a wife this entire time. All of them gets like easy position across the entire realm. And what do they do with all that power? They take whatever the hell they want. They take all the money and riches they want from the people. They tax whatever they want. They kill whoever they want. So, you know, not too different from him. He runs in the family. In the mom's side. Those were just some of the awful things he did. You know, he also suppressed the freedom religion, especially the minority one, like Taoism or ancestor worship, or shamanism. And not only that, he was also fond of slaughtering the native slaves. Yeah, he feared a slave rebellion, which, you know, to be fair, did help the rebel force to eventually overthrow him. But he was very much against them. He was slaughtering left and right, even half-blood, born of those Cham people that were conquered by his grandfather. Nope. Oh, gone. Clean house. And after that, eventually push came to shove and two factions rose against him. Both came from his dad's side of the family. Now one of them was called Nguyen Van Lang. He was one of those people who was stayed neutral and got sent to the countryside, but Le Nang Cam was a nobility who inspired him with the speech at the beginning. That's right. He wrote that in a letter, sent it to Nguyen Van Lang, and who is known to be an actual general who is actually capable of leading battle and winning wars. And of course, him and a bunch of slaves who managed to escape Uy Muc's wrath form basically a ragtag army in Taido, these days Thanh Now, not only that, but there was also Le Oanh, which makes up the other faction. He was one of those people that was supposed to be killed. He was sitting his ass in the dungeon until he managed to bribe one of the guards and snuck out. And after that, he also joined forces up with Nguyen Van Lang down there, and he formed into one big army. in there, then he himself also released a denouncing letter. It was much shorter, but it's basically it's more or less the same thing. You know, he's a corrupt fuck. He's just nothing more than a brat with milk in his breath. He one who poisoned his own grandmother and slaughtered people. Yada yada yada. Nothing too much, you know. But after that, the war has officially begun because everybody across the realm got basically a copy of this too denouncing piece of literature, and boy was Uy Muc pissed. Now Leo Ang was leading the initial army of the rebel forces towards the capital itself. We don't know the exact numbers, but let's just say it was enough to piss Uy Muc off, because not only is he marching straight towards the capital, he is also claiming himself to be Le Sung, which he is not. Le Sung is one of Uy Muc's half-brothers, who has a stronger claim to the throne. And that, of course, you know, pissed him off so much, he led the entire imperial army himself, all those shiny horses, all those shiny elephants, all by himself down to meet the enemy forces. And, well, let's just say Leo Ang is smart enough to do guerrilla tactics, but Uy Muc managed to catch a small amount of them. That was in middle of prayer and up in the sacred temple on top of a mountain. He killed 20 guys and a naval commander on the rebel side. Yep, his first great initial success. He killed 20 guys. He brought an entire army and killed 20 guys and captured one guy, who then he decorated the imperial gates with, like it's some kind of big deal. And he was like, "Yep, I done my work here. I'm just gonna sit at home. Here, Le Vu," one of his cousins, "you will lead the imperial army now. Finish him off. I already done the hard work." And so Le Vu gets to lead this imperial army containing not only the Divine Guard, the elite army guard, but also the outer palace guards. All of the best imperial troops the Vietnamese army at the time can afford. They were all slaughtered by Leo Ang. Yeah, they were all got their ass handed to them by the rebel forces. You see, this is why you if you want to do something right, you gotta do it yourself. All of these humiliating little defeats went on for 15 days straight. Eventually, Uy Muc had enough, and he ordered the mass execution of all of his step siblings and his stepmoms too. And then he gave all the heads to his general, which he appointed. And upon the big battlefield, the general raised all these heads and said, "Witness, for these are the prince you fight for. Do you dare spout any more insolence?" And that only pissed the rebel off even more. And next thing you know, the imperial army was surrounded by the rebels' army. Imperial court loses the most in that battle. In fact, most of the imperial army was slaughtered to the man. And that, of course, scared the hell out of Uy Muc, as he realized, oh no, my army's gone and the rebels going straight for the capital. So he pulled the nuclear option. Not really the nuclear option, but like the desperate option. He ran down to the dungeons and told every man down there, which is a lot, and told them, "If you go up there and take up arms and join me, I will grant you freedom and pay each of you 3 quan." Now, the value of 3 kwans varies throughout the entire age, but more or less, it's basically about a year worth of a peasant's wage. A year worth of like a farmer's wage, but like a month worth of like a craftsman wage. That's a good rough estimation of about how much he gave them, each of them. That didn't went anywhere. They just took the money and went home.
I mean, I don't blame them. They're there in the first place because of him. And now he wants them to fight for him over what? Minimum wage? Hell nah. Anyway, afterwards, he got panicked and immediately called out to all the nearby provinces, all the nearby nobility who is still loyal to him, and demanded, he didn't ask, he demanded 5,000 men from each of the provinces to save his ass. But before they could even start mustering the men, the rebel forces were at the gate. Now, at the time, the leader of the city watch was Lê Quảng Độ. He decided to realize, oh no, we're screwed. So he betrayed Uy Muc. How? Well, he would do this sneaky little thing where he was pretend to fight the rebels. He would have his men beat the rebels with sticks and shoot flares and signals and shoot out gun commands to basically tell the rebels where to go, where to strike, who not to kill, and who's to kill. Oh, while our boy is hiding up in his little palace, his pretty palace that he spent so much money building. Yeah, throughout this entire reign, all of his nasty cruelty, that he had a passion project. Yeah, a wholesome passion project where he was building an entire wing of the castle with the prettiest garden and the nicest gazebos and the prettiest lakes you can imagine. And that was his little comfort zone. And it's kind of sad. Just imagine this 17-year-old kid. Well, he was 21 by now. This 21-year-old guy just cowering in his comfort spot, his safe place basically. And while the rebel forces closed in on him onto the palace, all the other nobility just abandoned him and just ran out of the city. They each scattered their own ways. His mom, specifically, we know that she went back to her hometown. Well, his adoptive mom. She went back to her hometown, and well, after hearing what's about to happen to her son, she know that she don't really have a chance. She don't really have much left to do. Next thing you know, she was dangling from a tree. Yeah. As for Uy Muc, he realized, yeah, the time's up. Yeah, no, I will not let them have the satisfaction. And so he went out just like the way Grandma did. Glug, glug, glug. By the time the rebel forces found him in his little garden gazebo, he was already dead on the ground. So, but of course they were, still very mad at all the bad things he did. And how did they decide to punish him? How did they get it off their system, basically? Because they can't really do anything. He's dead. They strap his body into the front of a cannon. Well, okay. The sources aren't clear, but some say he strap him to the cannon. Some say he just stuff his body into a cannon, like a really big cannon. We had a lot of those back then. Yeah, not a lot of people know this, but we were pretty good with gunpowder back in the medieval age. Some would even say almost as good as Korean. We just didn't use them as much. Now, and then kablooey! All his pieces went flying everywhere. A little bit over there, a little bit over there, a little bit up there. Everywhere. And afterwards, Leon claimed throne and called himself the new emperor of Dai Nam, calling himself Lê Tương Dực. Now to be fair, his reign wasn't as good either. He also lasted 5 years, just like our boy. But, hey, he won. That's what counts, right? Right? And after what? They only have to do some identity theft, some bribery, some coercion. It's classic politics. And that is where our story of our boy ends, who is remembered as one of the worst kings we ever had. One of the cruelest. The only demon king we have, so he got that going for him. Whatever happened to his garden? I don't know. Yeah. He probably didn't last. They probably just, made it to a pool or something. Now you almost were wondering, why did I decide to make my first Yap video about something so morbid, cruel, evil? Someone who is such a horrible person. The Joffrey Baratheon of Vietnam. But I like to say, because this entire story was interesting. That's right, this entire story. Even the rebel side, they don't seem like the nicest of people. They don't seem like the best of people. And even the king himself, he's not completely bad. Look, what I'm trying to say is, when it comes to history, there's a lot of gray side to it. It's not always black and white, especially in cases like this. But even then, it's nice to see
someone who's completely black. That sounds wrong. Someone who's completely evil, doing horrible, horrible things, and then shenanigans ensues throughout his entire life. And I say, that's what makes history fun to read.